Hey everybody, welcome back to Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We're going to spend the next couple of segments talking about what else? Hurricane recovery. It's only been a year and a half, but in some ways it feels like it's just been a couple of weeks for sure. Ashley Barahona is here, long-term recovery manager for the United Way of South Louisiana. So Ashley, thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it does seem like, Groundhog's Day in many ways, but then there's so much. We're making progress in so many other ways.
Definitely.
But long-term recovery, what does that mean? And you want to talk about BAR, right?
Correct. Yeah. So every time I come on air as a guest, it feels like I'm talking about something different each and every time.
Right.
My passion is education and literacy in Terrebonne Parish and my role with TFAE. But from that grew after Hurricane Ida the need to get our educators, our first responders, our citizens back into sustainable and safe housing. And so I've lived in Terrebonne Parish my whole life. I went to school here, I plan to raise my kids here, and I never knew that this group existed until I was submerged into long-term recovery. And BAR, which is the Bayou Area Regional Recovery, or also known as Rebuild Recover, however you want to say it, but it's BARR. It's a group that was formed in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. And I say a group because there's no formal membership or membership dues. There's no bylaws or any type of fundamental rules you have to abide by. You can be a governmental entity, you can be a nonprofit, a for-profit, an individual, a citizen, whatever it may be. It's just like-minded people that come together, and we have four fundamental responsibilities, and that is to coordinate, to collaborate, and most importantly, to communicate. Because in disaster times, everything becomes so chaotic.
Sure.
We don't know what everyone's doing their own thing, and so if we can work together as a community in BAR to know what each responsibility will be in the aftermath of a natural hazard, then we can be 3 steps ahead of the whole process. And so we learned a lot in Hurricane Ida, but we also figured out ways to do things that may be better in the future. So BAR, it covers Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish, also St. Mary and Assumption, and we bring in the conversation Grand Isle residents as well, because we do know that they are part of Jefferson Parish, but they work, they shop, they relate to the Bayou area, and so they are also part of the BAR conversation. We also learned in the experience that there's 3 phases to recovery. There's 3 kind of phases to that, and that is relief, response, and then recovery. And what we learned is that the more time you spend in the first 2 phases, relief and response, you can add that to years in recovery. So we estimate we spent about 3 to 4 months in relief and response. So we can estimate that we'll probably spend 3 to 4 years in the recovery process. So this long-term recovery process
you can feel it.
is not going to be a sprint, but it's going to be a marathon.
And I like what you're talking about, that you could be anybody, right? Because look, even like my companies, like how can we help? We got to help. We got to do something. We got to send boots on the ground. We got to send resources. And everybody wants to do that. I mean, everybody's deal not from here, but it's the coordination, because then you're overwhelmed at some places. I mean, we had a crew went to Dularge, and like, we don't really need anything.
Yes.
Maybe bring it to Chauvin or something.
Absolutely.
And that's the coordination you talk about, because everybody wants to help out, but then you see people that don't get anything.
Correct.
So the coordination would help in that regard.
And one of the biggest things we learned through Hurricane Ida was that exact thing you just mentioned. A lot of our residents in certain areas were overlooked while other areas were getting bombarded. So we have about 212 members of BAR, Bayou Area Regional Recovery, and we meet once a month through Zoom or in person, and we just talk about those things. What, in recovery, what do we plan to do? What is it that we're currently doing, and other things such as, are we currently doing a distribution? What type of upcoming community events are going on? And it's just about communicating, and so that we can have a plan. And we know plans change, especially in the aftermath of a natural occurrence. If you have a distribution set up with your church, where will that location be? But let's say your church is demolished for a hurricane or a tornado or whatnot. What's your plan B? So that we know as a community what can we expect and what can we help make happen in the light of a natural disaster.
All right, 2 things. So BAR, how do you become a member, and how do you get help from BAR?
So you really don't have to become a member
Right,
any kind of
right,
way,
that's
but
what I said.
you could
I
just
mean-
email me
Right.
directly, and I can put you on the contact list, and you can start being part of those conversations once a month. So you can email me at info at uwsla.com, and we can put you on the distribution email list, and you can get up-to-date information as far as what's going on in the community events, and then also be part of the conversation in our meetings once a month
Right.
via Zoom or in person.
Right. No, that's awesome. So, what's the biggest deal now? And we're going to spend a little more time on that. But what are you guys looking for right now?
So our biggest challenge coming into, right after Hurricane Ida was basically getting a plan together, collaborating. Everybody wants to do their own thing. Every organization has a certain project they want to do or complete, but one thing that we've learned is that if we work together, we can really spread the limited amount of resources we have more efficiently throughout the community. So we're looking for other organizations that would like to join. You can have manpower, meaning volunteers. You can have material, meaning building materials or whatnot, or if you're a funder as well. And we'll talk about the Unmet Needs Committee
Right.
afterwards in the next segment. But if you do want to just be part of the conversation, you can just join us by emailing me directly, and I can put you on that email list.
And the United Way is always a good place too, to kind of
Absolutely,
go
yes, yeah.
and at least know what's out there and all that stuff. Yeah, look, still got plenty. Like I said, in some spots you go, yeah, good recovery. Yeah, everybody just looks like it's doing. And then other times you go, wow, that hadn't been touched yet, or those people aren't back in their house yet. you know?
Yeah. And our priority are the residents that are still living in
Right.
the trailers over at Rebecca Plantation and
Yeah.
things of that nature. We actually did a feed more recently to help those residents.
Yeah.
So they're still there. They're still trying to get back home.
All of those folks are in the high rise, had to go somewhere. So
Yeah.
let's talk about some of the unmet needs. And we talked a little bit about some of the housing needs, but there's, I'm sure, a lot of unmet needs. Right? And that's where
Absolutely.
you guys are trying to organize.
Correct. So the Bayou Area Regional Recovery Group is that big collaboration of all the nonprofits, faith-based, non-faith-based that we talked about in the first segment. From BAR comes the Unmet Needs Committee, correct? So the Unmet Needs Committee is made up of 3 different types of individuals or organizations. You can either be a funder, meaning you have money to help with projects. You can either have manpower, meaning you have volunteers to help with the ongoing projects or the unmet needs, or you can have materials, meaning building materials, hammers, diggers, whatever it may be, equipment to help with the ongoing recovery efforts. So those 3 types of organizations or individuals make up the Unmet Needs Committee. So from there, you have what's called the DCMP, which is the Disaster Case Management Project from the federal government. They have hired a case management company to come in, and in our area, it's actually Workforce. So whenever you applied initially after the disaster, you were assigned a case manager. It is very important that you have direct relations with that case manager. They will help you through the FEMA appeals. They should help you through getting any type of other resources you may need in the recovery efforts. So one thing I don't want people to be confused with is in order to come to the Unmet Needs Committee, you must be a case manager from any of the DCMP.
Can't just go
You
individually.
can't just come individually and present your case. So your case manager knows exactly what funding you received, exactly what FEMA funding you've gotten, or any type of restore, or any insurance claims, or anything like that. So they will come to the Unmet Needs Committee and present your case to what's made up of those 3 types of manpower, money, or material. So when we talked about, as we work together as a group of individuals, our resources get spread out more. So collectively, we can help more individuals in more cases than we can as an individual or as an organization by ourselves. So this is a way that we are preventing us from duplicating services, or, with United Way Fund, we may be able to only help 5 families get back into sustainable and safe housing, whereas if we work together with other funders like the Salvation Army or Catholic Charities or things like that, we can potentially help 25 to 30 with our same funds.
Right.
So it's a concept that I knew nothing about until I started working and really understanding what the DCMP did in case management and those unmet needs committees that
Right.
help individuals get back home.
Yeah, if you can have a clearinghouse or have a manager that knows exactly what you're doing, you know, you don't want to duplicate funds. You don't want somebody going, hey, I got a house and I got this and I got this, and then almost like doctors shopping, right? You go get a
Correct.
script at 4 different doctors, and suddenly you might get yourself in trouble.
Correct.
Same with this. You don't want somebody going to different. You need to know what you're qualified for and what you receive.
Yes, yes, and not just that. You know, as a nonprofit, we have a small pot of money, and we want to make sure that that small pot of money gets
Right.
used in the most efficient and effective, and it goes a long way, because we know that there are a lot of people out there still struggling to
Sure.
get home.
And
But
then you got a neighbor next door going, wow,
Yes.
why is this house raised and I'm
exactly,
still dealing with this? Right.
exactly. So if you understand, and I think education and knowledge of the whole process is key. A lot of people get frustrated because there are a lot of misinformation, incorrect information out there in the community. And so I think if you get the correct information, the process becomes a little bit less frustrating.
Right.
If you understand
Right,
it.
and it is a bit of a bureaucracy in some, but we are dealing with the federal government and
Correct.
local governments and
Correct.
trying to tie it all in together. For
Right. And I
sure.
think the most important thing to understand is that your case manager is the one that presents your case to the Unmet Needs Committee, not an individual themselves. So they, as a survivor, they should definitely know their case manager. I mean, they should be your best friend.
Sure.
You should
Right.
have their cell phone number, and they should be able to help you through the FEMA process, because it is very confusing and
Right.
can be very frustrating.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit on the other segment about our biggest need, and it's still housing, right? And we talked about, the high rise is not going to. I don't know what we're doing with that building,
Yeah,
but
I don't know either.
but anyway, those folks, a lot of those folks are still in trailers. So what's next for?
Yeah.
Would those people fall into unmet needs, or where do they fall in?
So for they could potentially become a case that's presented by their case manager to the unmet needs. But I just met with the Mennonite Disaster Service project manager, and our biggest challenge has been getting those national rebuild groups into our community to help us rebuild houses, because we don't really have houses
Right.
to put people into.
Right.
So if we can get more national rebuild groups, the Mennonites, to come in to help us do those big rebuild houses, get people into sustainable, safe housing, do the repairs. I think volunteers and volunteer manpower has been our biggest challenge, and materials. Getting
Materials, I was
materials
about to say.
into our community has also been a big challenge
Yeah,
in the
the
rebuild
price
process.
of lumber and
Yes.
just the availability of lumber, right?
Absolutely.
Just trying to get all that kind of stuff down here, and then finding somebody to actually do the labor. I
Yes.
mean, when we got Florida that's dealing with it now, Lake Charles the year before and the year before that.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of feeding
Yeah.
the same kind of deal,
And it goes back to, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon.
Sure.
And so because we spent so long in those first 2 phases of relief and response, the recovery is not going to,
Takes
look
a
at Lake
while.
Charles, it's
Right.
already
Oh.
almost 2 years out, and they just got to the point where they can rebuild houses.
Yeah,
So
no doubt. Well, Ashley, keep up the good fight. We appreciate you being here.
thank you so much for
All
having me.
right, we'll be right back with more Bayou Time after this.